So in the morning, as soon as breakfast is done, we'll get set up here at the table and I'll get them started on their work. Now, I really like to do things more relaxed when it comes to homeschooling, at least for now. It's what works for us. So when I'm eating my breakfast, I will just let them go outside and play, especially right now because it's the middle of the summer in Oklahoma and it is hot outside, and so they can't go out during the day really at all. It's just too hot. So in the morning when it's cooler, I let them spend time out there in nature, running around, riding their bikes, playing in the grass. And then when I'm done with my breakfast, then I'll call them in, or they'll usually come in on their own too. And I'll get them set up with school at the table, just like we're doing right now. And also, one of the things that I do that might be a little different for most people is I know a lot of homeschoolers have a really strict schedule where they'll have, we do math first and then we do language and we do it for this many minutes and we set the timer and we start at this time and we end at this time. And I don't know if it's just my personality that I'm not green like that. If you've studied the personality colors, I'm a INFJ, and it's just not one of the things that I really spend a lot of time stressing about, schedules and times and all of that. And so I really try to be a lot more relaxed with the school, and I also like to follow their lead because they're very intelligent and they love school, and I don't want to make school be something that is horrible and just a total drag and like pulling teeth for them. So what I let them do is every morning when we start school, they pretty much just go to the school desk and they grab whatever subject they feel like starting with, and we'll start with that. So one day they might both grab their math books and just want to dive into math, and the next day they might grab their language and want to start with language. One day, Elijah might grab math first and Fiona might grab language first, and that is totally okay with me. And the reason that I love that is because, one, it's allowing them to have some measure of autonomy so they don't feel like they're just little robots that have to do everything mom says. And it helps, I think, to lessen the amount of resentment that they have or might develop towards me if I regimented every single thing about their lives and made them follow mom's plan and mom's schedule. That can, I'm not saying it does. If you do that and it works for you, that's awesome. But for me growing up, I was homeschooled and our home was like that. And I just felt like I never really had a choice or a say in the matter. And so I like to let them have that bit of freedom. Another thing that we do is if they're really showing an interest in a particular subject, like we're studying science, and one of them just gets really interested in botany or in studying bugs or butterflies or whatever it is, then I will let them just take off with that, and we'll just focus on that one particular thing for as long as their interest remains. And if it's time to move on to the next subject and they're not ready and they want to still work on whatever it is that they're interested in, then we'll take longer. We'll let them spend more time on that. So
I want to keep working on my math.
I know, yes.
I need my language. I love language.
You love language?
Because I get to write cursive.
Can't see you. There you are.
There's the Elijah. There's Elijah.
There's Elijah. All right, well, I'm gonna get off here. We're gonna finish up our school and I will show you more tidbits as the day goes on. The kids just made themselves a snack, so they're gonna go eat that out on the picnic table on the front porch, while I have gathered everything from all four corners of the house to go over with you guys. So right now Elijah is 5 and Fiona is 7, going on 8, and Fiona is about in the middle, maybe 3/4 of the way through 3rd grade, and Elijah is about 3/4 of the way through 2nd grade. And he has progressed a little faster just because he loves to do everything Fiona does. So he follows her along and he's gone just really fast through his school. So why don't I start at the beginning? Because you guys have asked, how did you teach your kids to read? And what is your method? What's your system? And so the short answer is I don't have one. I was homeschooled and I went all the way through to college. I went
and got my nursing degree, graduated with almost a 4.0, just barely below a 4.0. There was one class, political science, that I absolutely hated, and so that brought my grade down a little bit. But so you can be homeschooled and you can go to college and you can get good grades. So just put any thought of homeschoolers being behind or being just not getting the quality of education that a public schooler can get, that is absolutely not true. Even for someone like me who maybe doesn't have the best system or the most organized, you still can totally do it. I don't have a teaching degree, and I could have done this having never gone to college. I didn't learn anything in college that has enabled me to homeschool my children, so don't let that deter you either. All right, so in the beginning, I read to my kids. Like, I read to them from the time they were teeny tiny, and I would hold them on my lap and read to them all the time, and they loved it. And so that, I think, set them up for being early readers themselves. And then I always had books in the house. I started them off with word books, and I would read them to them. I would point out the words. I never did any of the video like Teach Your Baby to Read or My Baby Can Read stuff, because that is primarily sight reading, and I didn't ever teach my children sight words because, well, for a lot of reasons, which I won't go into in this video, but you can do your own research on that. So what I did was what my mom taught me, and that is phonics. So learning to read with the phonics system rather than with sight reading. Because what do you do if you learn sight reading or you teach your child this whole list of sight words? What do they do when they come across a word that they haven't seen before? If you haven't given them a good foundation in phonics, then they're not going to be able to read that word. They need to be able to sound out the words to figure them out on their own. So my son, he's 5 now, and he reads the Bible. He reads anything that you put in front of him, and he can sound out the words and figure out what they are, even if it's a word that he's never seen before. So after I began with them, reading to them, then I started them on little flashcards, and I made these. You don't have to make them. I was just crafty, and it was my first child, so I had lots of time. Now that I'm on my 3rd child, I wouldn't probably make my own flashcards. I would just buy them. And I may have even made these like before she was born, but these are just cardstock with the letters on them, and I drew little pictures and then took them to Office Depot and had them laminated. So what it is just the letters, and then I chose on a lot of these pictures of things. Elijah, what are you doing?
I'm getting some.
Okay, be careful. Be careful.
Yeah. I didn't want to see, so I just got your cup.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Pictures of things that they were familiar with in their life. So like for B, the letter B, I didn't do a bus. You know, so often if you buy the flashcards, there's a picture of a bus, and they'll never see a bus. So, I mean, a school bus. So that wouldn't have any significance to them, any meaning to them. So, for example, under K, I put a bottle of kombucha because I used to make my own kombucha. Well, I still make it, but I used to store it in bottles that looked just like this. They were green glass bottles, and the kids knew exactly what that was, and they would recognize that as a real object in their life. And there's a couple other ones like T, N. So N, I drew a necklace. It's the exact amber necklace. It's a Baltic amber necklace that I made for Fiona. It has her little initial F on the bottom, and this is a replica of the necklace that she would wear every day when she was little. L is for Lovey. She had a little stuffed animal, Lovey, and I drew an exact picture of what that animal looked like. So you don't have to do that. I don't know whether it helped her learn her letters any faster, but it just gave her that connection with real life and the sounds having to do with real things that she saw in her everyday life. And then as they got older, I made some more flashcards with the diphthongs, EA, and then the consonant blends, CK, WH, TH, SH, and we just broke the sounds up phonetically. And so we would learn the letters and the letter sounds initially, then we would start learning the blends and the sounds of the blends. And then I love these. These are Bob books. And I got these on Amazon. I got, I think, the first 2 or 3 sets and didn't go past the 3rd set because by the time they got to the 3rd set, they were reading everything anyway, so they didn't need these anymore. But these are really great for beginning readers. Each box comes with 3 or 4 books, and they're in sets of 3. So I think it comes with 12 books, and it's broken up into sections, with the first section being the easiest, and then a little harder one, and then a little harder one. So when you get this set, you can progress through, starting with the easiest ones and going to the harder ones. And these are very simple. The illustrations are very simple, and they're just hand-drawn illustrations. And this is a really good, easy way where they can take a book and they can actually read the words, because these are words that they have learned how to sound out. Like this, for example, this one is the 3rd set, and they're reading things like Mom met Ned at the bus stop. And so then at the end, it has a list of all of the words that they learned or they used in this book, and they can go over those, and you can even teach them spelling at that time, which I did also. Even before they were writing, I would do spelling with them and just have them spell them back to me orally. So those are great. I love those when they were younger. Then moving on from there, we got this set of McGuffey readers, and these are the original unabridged McGuffey readers. I got these on Amazon also, and these will take you from early reading, primer level, all the way up to high school level. And so right now we are on, I think Elijah's on the 2nd reader, Fiona's on the 3rd reader, and we started with the primers, of course. And in the primers, you're learning things like hen, top, just very simple. They've got a picture. And then as it progresses, they have little sentences with a few basic sight words like it, so, we, am. And then at the end of each section, they have a summary of all the words that they went over. And so they would start with this one and then move on up to the next highest level. So for example, Elijah, he is 5 and he's in the 2nd reader. He's reading things like, for example, here's a story about King Solomon. So he reads, "There was no king anywhere in all the world like Solomon, for his riches and his wisdom. He had a fine throne of ivory on which he sat. It was covered over with the finest gold. All his drinking vessels and all the vessels which were in his palace were of pure gold." And then he's spelling the words at the ends of the chapters. And he's spelling words like, let's find the ones we did last time. Okay, so the last time he spelled words like sleigh, S-L-E-I-G-H, sleigh. He's doing words with lots of silent letters like sighing, through. He's done words like delightful, Thanksgiving. And when he spells words like that, he is so proud of himself. He's just like, you can't stop him from jumping around and screaming. He loves it. And what I'll do is he will read the lesson, and then I will let him read over these spelling words, and he reads over them, and then he looks away from the book and spells them to himself. And then when he's done that a few times, then he brings me the book, and I ask him the words, and he tells them to me orally. And then Fiona, she is 7, and she is doing written spelling tests. So when she does the words at the end of each lesson, I will quiz her, and she will write them down, and then we'll go over them together to correct them. So this is another really, really great tool that I have loved. And then the other thing that I used to actually teach them to read at the very beginning is this Sam Blumenfeld's Alphaphonics. And I did a lot of research before I got this because I wanted a basic reading curriculum that was very simple, very simple. I didn't want a bunch of bells and whistles. And this one is that. I mean, this is the inside of it. It's nothing fancy. There's no pictures. It's just basic phonics. And what's really neat is that in the back, there's a section that is laid out for every single lesson. So for example, it'll say lesson 2, and it will tell you exactly what to do. It'll tell you exactly what to say. It will say, ask them how many sounds are in that word. So you can literally have no clue how to teach your child how to read, and this will walk you through it every single day. If you can read yourself, you can teach your child to read with this. Very, very simple. Fiona was 3. She was just barely 3.5, between 3 and 3.5 when I started this with her. So very young. They don't need to know how to write. They don't need to have any motor skills. I mean, they don't need to have any fine motor skills. They don't need to be able to write, but you can start teaching them to read with this. And so this will set the foundation for then moving on to the Little Bob books, and then from there moving on to the primers in this set. So that is really what I use to teach them to read, those 3 things, and then flashcards and reading to them. Okay, math. Math, I started with, hold on, let me get a drink. I started with Saxon. Actually, when I was homeschooled, I did Saxon math. And so I started my kids on Saxon, started Fiona on Saxon with Math K, which is the first one. And then we also moved into Math 1 after that. This is Saxon math, if you've never seen it before. It's massive. It's a behemoth. It's an elephant. It's huge. And it just got so freaking overwhelming. I was overwhelmed. She was overwhelmed. It was way too much work. It was way too much workbook work, paperwork. The lessons were too long. The school year itself was too long. She would have to do math like every single day of the year just to get through this book. And because we homeschool year round, I don't like to have her do every subject every single day. We kind of rotate things out. And I just got to the point where it was taking so much of my time and so much of her time that we didn't have time left to do real life and real school. So I looked around and found some really great reviews on this other curriculum called Math Lessons for a Living Education. And this is more aligned with the Charlotte Mason style of homeschooling, and I love it. And what's better is the kids love it, and they get it out and they have fun with it. The lessons are short, and there's a lot of repetition. And what's great that I love most is that it incorporates math into everyday life, into real life. So there will be a lesson and they'll be talking about Grandpa planting his garden, and the kids are with him and he's showing them how many seeds he's putting in each hole and how many rows he's making, and you're learning multiplication and addition and all of these facts in the context of real life and what's happening around you, and measuring things and cooking and baking and time and temperature and money. You're learning all of that in this context of its use in real life. So when you're doing your math, you actually feel like there's a purpose to this. I'm not just blindly, rotely memorizing facts and equations and coming up with solutions that aren't tethered to real life. So like I was talking about earlier with the flashcards having connections to real life, it's the same with this math, and I love it. I'm so happy I found it. Math Lessons for a Living Education. And by the way, I will put all the links to where I get everything in the description. Some of these are available on Amazon. Some of them are just available on independent websites. Christian book distributors, I get some of their stuff there as well. So you guys I'll give you all the hookups in the description. So that's what we're doing now. Fiona's doing the 3rd grade Math Lessons for a Living Education, and Elijah's doing the 2nd grade. So for example, Fiona, where she is at right now, she is already doing multiplication and division. She's already learned time, telling time. She's already learned temperature. She's learned money. She adds 3-digit numbers and subtracts 3-digit numbers. So that's where she is right now, and she's 7 years old. I am not familiar with what 3rd grade or 7-year-olds are learning in public school, so I don't really have anything to compare that to. But to me, I'm happy. I think that's great for a 7-year-old to know how to do that. History, actually, let me do language first. Language, when I was homeschooled, we did Abeka for language, and I loved it. And so I went ahead and got it for my kids, and we've done the Abeka language as well with them, and they love that as well. Fiona is in the 3rd grade language, and Elijah's in the 2nd grade language. Actually, he's almost done with it. And he is doing things like writing stories. He's learned punctuation, capitalization. He knows the correct meaning or usage of words like teach and learn, may and can, all the different uses of the different twos, like two and two, sit and set, lie and lay. He's learning, what else? Recently, putting things in alphabetical order. Of course, opposites, synonyms, homonyms, lots and lots of really great stuff, and he loves it. And he's only 5, and he's learning all of that. For handwriting, we did the curriculum called Cursive First, and so we teach them cursive from as early as they have the coordination for it. Now, when they're Elijah, maybe it's because he's a boy, but he had a harder time getting the motions down, and so we're just waiting, and that's perfectly fine. Fiona, she got it much earlier, so right now her language I don't have out, but I would show you what her penmanship is like now. But she is she's writing cursive. I don't know if you can see it very well on here, but she's writing cursive just beautifully at 7 years old, and so that is another great curriculum. It's called Cursive First, and it's another really super simple one. They send you masters, and you make copies, and I just print them out and put them in a folder, and then they do the little worksheets. And then we have history. I'm trying to go quickly for you guys. History, I found this curriculum recommended by a friend, and I love it. It's called Story of the World. And the reason that I love this is because it doesn't glorify America, and it doesn't fill the children's heads with that America is the greatest nation on earth, and worship the president, and worship the military, and worship the police, and worship the Liberty Bell, and worship the Statue of Liberty, and all of these icons, because that's not our belief system. So what we do with Story of the World is this goes through every culture, and it studies every culture equally, and it starts with ancient history and it works its way up. And we will study American history, but right now we're studying like the Middle Ages. We're studying, this volume is from the fall of Rome to the rise of the Renaissance, and this is the 2nd volume. And how it works is you read a lesson, and I will usually read it to them because I like to be involved, and I like the stories too. So I will read the lesson to them, and then afterwards, this is the activity book, and there are questions, comprehension questions in here, so I can ask them to see what they remembered and how they were listening, and if they actually got what we read about. And then in the back, there's activities that you can print out, you can make copies of. There are map activities, there are coloring pages, you can make paper dolls, and it goes from, you can use it at any grade. So you could start this in 2nd grade, and then you could do it again in 8th grade, and there's different activities that are gauged for those older grades, and then they have some for the younger grades. So you can really start this at any time and use it for any grade, and just pick and choose which activities you want to do with the kids. Going back to math, some of the things that I really loved were the math manipulatives set. There's a big set, and it's actually pretty sure I got it from Christian Book Distributors, and I put it in this big tub because it comes with a lot. It comes with clocks so they can learn time. It comes with geo boards and geo bands. It comes with counting items, dominoes. It comes with a scale, a balance, so they can learn weights and, you know, heavier and lighter and different things. So they love that. And then it also comes with these. These are called pattern blocks, and really they're just tangram pieces, and those are incorporated into a lot of the lessons. And these they have absolutely loved, and I've loved these too. These are called linking cubes, and there's 10 of each color. There's 10 colors and 10 of each, so you can set them up in a grid, and you can use them for teaching patterns, sequences, really anything. You just use your imagination, and you can use these. We use these a lot in the early stages of the math learning. And then it also comes with counting items. So when they're dividing up things into groups of 10 or groups of 2, say they're learning addition or subtraction, then they have these. These are the counting bears, and they're just little teddy bears in 4 different colors, and they can, hi! Did you enjoy your snack?
Yeah, it was yummy.
Okay. And they used to use these to count, and you don't have to have these. You could use rocks or beans. We use beans a lot, but these are fun for them to use as well. And that comes all as part of the Math Manipulatives kit. Also in the beginning, when I was teaching them reading, some of the things that we used were this is for Melissa and Doug. This is a fun little set, and it's all wood, and that I love. But it has little wooden cards in here, and they have a word on each side and a picture, and then a little puzzle. And then it comes with all of these little wooden letters, and they can take the wooden letters and they can fit them in to the puzzle like that, and they can spell their own words. And so they would get this out even long after they had learned how to read. They would get these out, and and there's one on each side of each card, and they would fill these in. And then you can also, you don't have to stick with what's on the cards. You can just use the wooden letters, and I would take the wooden letters and I would make basic words for them to sound out, and we would have play games and have competitions and see, you know, if they could make a word and I would sound it out, and just use your imagination and have fun with it. But all these little colored wooden letters are in there as well, and you can just use them however you want. So that was a great little tool that I will definitely use again with Hosanna. And then this was a really good one too, that also is Melissa and Doug. And I like this because you have a clock, so you can do time. You have numbers 1 through 12, so they can learn their numbers. You have colors, so you have all these different colors, and in the beginning you can just take the basic colors, the primary colors, you know, yellow, red, blue, and you have shapes. So every one of these is a different shape. You have a star, you know, you have parallelograms, you have squares and octagons, and so and it's all on the back. So on the back tells you what all the shapes are, so you can teach them numbers, time, shapes, colors, and then also the coordination of just the puzzle action, finding the correct hole for the correct piece. So this toy here covers a lot of bases, so you get a lot of bang for your buck with this toy. Well, not toy, tool. Okay, oh, and then last but not least, this is, because you guys obviously are going to want to know, how do you stay organized? What's your system? And this I saw on a blog, and it is just great. So I get these clear totes. It's just a Stairlight tote from Amazon. And in here I have hanging file folders. And on each hanging file folder, so I'll take the first one here when she was just first starting. And on the front of each one, I put her details and her picture for that year or grade or whatever you're in. So I put a picture of her age, some of the things that she likes at that time, some of the things that she's reading at that time, and then I put that in there, and as you can see here, it shows through on the front. So for now, she's 7, I have a picture of her there, you can see it in the front, and then when she was 6, I had a separate one, and so always the current year is in the front, so you can see through it. And then as she does her handwriting worksheets or her history coloring sheets, those will go in here, and I will put them in here. So for this year, for example, I have things like, you know, her coloring of a barbarian from her history, and some maps that she's done, letters that she's written, and pictures that she's drawn. This is actually with love to Elijah. Yeah, so this is one that she made for Elijah. Pictures, her handwriting, all of her cursive handwriting sheets go in here. So that is just how I keep my their work organized, and that's my system. I mean, it's a lot, it's not complicated, but it works for me. And then I have a separate one of these for Elijah, and he has folders for all of his work. And then in the back, I keep all my masters. So for the cursive first curriculum, and this is what it looks like when you get the book, I have a, now I can't remember where I took it out of. I have there it is, a folder for all of the cursive worksheets, and then I have a folder for the story of the world activity sheets and the math worksheets and flashcards and things like that. So all of that is in there as well. So that is my system for keeping track of their work and all of my masters and any loose papers that are outside of the actual textbooks. The last thing I have on the table here is our essential oils. This one's called Genius, and we can't school without these. These are definitely a must-have. The kids love these because whenever they get stumped or feeling like they can't think, or they need ideas, or they get frustrated, which happens with them because they are humans, all they do is take this and they just sniff it right from the bottle, or sometimes they'll put a drop in their hands and then rub their hands together and just inhale that. They'll put it on the top of their head sometimes, put it on their brainstem area. And these help so much with focus, with concentration, with calming. There are many oils that are really good for just settling them down, calming them down, helping them focus, helping them concentrate, and we just love them. We can't live without them. What else? I think that's pretty much it. I mean, like I said, I'm not that complicated. I try to keep things pretty simple. Oh, I didn't mention science. We do a Becca for science as well. And beyond those, I mean, those are our core subjects: math, language, science, history, penmanship, reading, of course, spelling. And then beyond that, it's real life. I mean, they're here all the time, so they do life with us. And just recently, one of the fun projects that they did was, we had a friend who raises bees, and he brought over a whole bunch of bee boxes for the kids to paint and decorate. So every day after breakfast, we would go out to the shop and they would paint and decorate these bee boxes, and they got paid for that. So they had their first job where they would go out and they would do work and they would get paid for their work. So that's a really fun thing too.